Join me as I dive into the details and try to piece together what really led to Al Capone's downfall on the day he was caught. Al Capone, one of America's most infamous gangsters, known for his ruthless tactics and lavish lifestyle. His rise to power was swift, his reign of terror left an indelible mark on American history, and his eventual downfall would send shockwaves throughout the nation. The challenges law enforcement faced in bringing down Capone were immense. He was cunning, well-connected, and seemingly untouchable. To many, he was a Robin Hood-like figure, a benevolent provider in a time of great hardship, and public perception of him was that of a powerful and charitable figure. This image was carefully crafted by Capone himself, who spared no expense in courting the media and buying influence. The government, on the other hand, was hamstrung by outdated laws and limited resources, struggling to keep pace with Capone's rapidly expanding empire. Despite his notoriety, Capone remained one step ahead of the law, always seeming to stay just out of reach. He was a master of manipulation, and his empire flourished as a result. Beneath the surface, the wheels were slowly turning. The government was gathering evidence, and its patience was wearing thin. The writing was on the wall, but Capone was too caught up in his own myth to notice. He lived large, hosting extravagant parties and making headlines with his brazen exploits, and it seemed as though nothing could bring him down. Law enforcement knew that to catch Capone, they needed to think outside the box. They couldn't peg him on traditional crimes like murder or extortion. He was too skilled at covering his tracks. It would take a new approach, one that focused on the one thing Capone couldn't charm or bribe his way out of: his taxes. The Internal Revenue Service, led by a determined agent named Frank Wilson, set its sights on Capone's books, poring over ledgers and receipts in search of discrepancies. It was a slow and laborious process, but it was the first real chink in Capone's armor. Meanwhile, the FBI, led by J. Edgar Hoover, was closing in on its own front, building a case against Capone that would eventually prove insurmountable. In the summer of 1931, the investigation reached a fever pitch. The government's case against Capone was building, and it was only a matter of time before the hammer dropped. On October 17, 1931, the day of reckoning finally arrived. Al Capone was arrested and charged with 22 counts of tax evasion. The news sent shockwaves through the city, and the empire that Capone had built began to crumble almost instantly. His lawyers scrambled to come up with a defense, but it was too little, too late. Capone's arrogance had finally caught up with him, and he would soon face the consequences. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Capone's empire was being dismantled, his associates were turning state's evidence, and the government was finally getting its man. On May 2nd, 1932, Capone's trial began, and it would be a long and grueling process. But the outcome was all but certain. Al Capone, the once mighty king of crime, would soon be trading in his tailored suits for prison stripes. In the end, Al Capone's downfall marked a major turning point in the history of American organized crime. His reign of terror had finally come to an end, and the government had proven that even the most powerful figures were not above the law. It was a hard-won victory, one that would pave the way for future law enforcement efforts and set a new standard for tackling organized crime. So, what do you think about Al Capone's incredible story? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you're interested in more crime history, be sure to check out some of our other videos.